The Tarzan franchise has many villains, including the 2001 TV series The Legend of Tarzan, which features a whole host of villains that we will explore and review. I will be reviewing and analyzing these villains' abilities and personalities, while also recapping the events that occurred in their appearances. So let's look at all the villains from the Tarzan franchise, starting with the most famous ones, Sabor. Sabor the leopard is the main antagonist of the first Tarzan movie. He is very ruthless and cunning, as we are first introduced to him in the opening scene, where he kills a baby gorilla and Tarzan's parents. I found the scene of him killing the baby gorilla to be really sad. It was tragic seeing Kala's grief at the beginning, which just shows how horrific Sabor's killing was. I find it interesting in both the murders of the gorilla and the parents, Sabor was able to accurately identify the whereabouts of his victims and escape any sort of accountability for his actions. I think he is more quick and cunning than what the movie portrays him as, and the fight scene between him and Kala was very entertaining, memorable, and action-packed. We get to see Sabor's aggression and tenacity in contrast to Kala's defensive and protective nature. Sabor is seen to be very strong, fast, and agile, with his ability to claw through almost anything I find to be quite impressive, honestly. At the end of the fight, Kala ends up escaping with Sabor tied up, and I found this to be a creative way to tame his aggression and violent nature, by tying him up to ensure that he is restrained, which prevents him from doing any harm. When he challenges Tarzan to a fight, he is killed by the sharp end of a spear, and Tarzan uses his body to symbolize his strength throughout the jungle. I think Sabor is a very memorable villain. His fight scenes were very quick, action-packed, and very entertaining to watch. He is portrayed to be very angry, ruthless, and bloodthirsty, but I think he is more calculating and intelligent than what is to be portrayed. The fact that he was able to identify the whereabouts of his victims, kill them, and then successfully hide and flee afterwards tells me that Sabor is intelligent in his own way, as opposed to being a savage beast who has no primitive control over his impulses. I'm gonna give him A tier. I think he is a very memorable villain, and his rivalry with Tarzan and his fight scene with Kala were both very memorable and iconic scenes that played an integral part in the story. William Clayton. Hunter William Clayton is the main antagonist in the first Tarzan movie. There are several instances where he tried to kill Tarzan, which foreshadows his inevitable role as the movie's villain. He is shown to be very eager to identify the whereabouts of the gorillas, as opposed to the other tourists, Porter and Jane, who are simply trying to explore. Clayton is shown to be very paranoid. His background as a hunter might be an explanation for his aggressive tendencies, as there were numerous instances where he tried to kill Tarzan. Clayton is very skilled in firearms training and possesses experience in swordsmanship, as he dual wields with a machete, and he uses both of these items during his fight with Tarzan. His fight scene with Tarzan is very fun to watch. He really gets his ass beat by Tarzan. I mean, he barely grazes him in the shoulder when shooting at him, and misses the other shots he fired at him. Clayton can't really keep up with Tarzan's speed, agility, and combat skills. He misses all his shots, gets kicked away, and then gets tied up and hanged to death. I found Clayton's death scene to be really dark and kind of morbid. I mean, he literally falls and hangs himself to death. That is a pretty painful way to go out. I also found the moment when he killed Kerchak to be really impactful. It was a great moment in the franchise that was very sad, but also touching and somber, as it played an integral part in the franchise. Clayton is shown to be distrusting of Tarzan and only uses him to orchestrate his plans of animal cruelty, rather than using the time to develop a trusting relationship with him and using him to perform advanced studies that can help the public understanding of behaviors of wildlife animals, which is what Jane and Porter do in the movie. Clayton's personality throughout the movie signifies his villainous intentions, as he has a wide range of weapons, an intense hatred towards animals, and an impatient demeanor that results in Tarzan almost getting killed. He possesses great leadership and is likely a businessman, as he has a wide network of pirates that help him orchestrate his plans. With the amount of calculation, preparation, and tools that were used to capture the animals, it is safe to assume that Clayton likely has experience hunting animals down for profit, as he is described as a hunter in the movie. Maybe he does have a lucrative career in hunting down the wildlife or selling them for profit. I mean, with the amount of people that helped him orchestrate his plans, I think he is a very shady individual, to say the least. Overall, I think he is a great villain. I think the movie does a great job outlining his villainous actions throughout the film that escalate into his plans to kidnap the animals. I think his fight scene with Tarzan is one of the best moments in the franchise, and the scene where he and his henchmen kidnap the gorillas is very action-packed and was awesome to watch. He is a character who is greatly acted, well-designed, and beautifully animated. I'm gonna give Clayton S tier. I think he is quite a memorable villain who had very action-packed moments in the movie and helped introduce the storyline between Tarzan and Jane. The Pirates. The Pirates are William Clayton's henchmen who appear at the end of the movie. When packing the tourists' items, Lieutenant Vincent Snipes is informed to orchestrate the next phase of a villainous plot. It starts with hijacking the ship by kidnapping all crew members and the captains. They then grab Tarzan and confine him in the ship's basement. They then move towards the gorillas as they plan to kidnap them and sell them for profit. The plan is foiled when Tarzan arrives to free the gorillas and the pirates are confined and beaten by the animals. I found the many different ways the pirates are subdued at the end of the movie to be very entertaining and creative. It's fun seeing them escaping into the cage for safety when they were the ones kidnapping the animals. It's like they got a taste of their own medicine. There isn't anything noteworthy about these individuals, but their presence does serve a significant point in the movie. I would have liked the movie to explore their backstory more, or more of their interactions with Clayton and how they came to orchestrate these crimes. I mean, many of these guys just don't look like the life of the party, to put it nicely. Were these guys coerced into the scheme with the promise of luxury items and wealth? Their ability to kidnap all the animals using ropes, ties, and swords, and even the distraction with the flare gun shows a level of calculation and planning. They were able to kidnap all the animals in a very efficient and coordinated manner, which may suggest that this plot may have been rehearsed and planned very deeply rather than something spontaneous. These villains aren't well developed in terms of personalities and are only background characters. I will give these villains A tier. I think the kidnappings were very well done. It was well executed, and the various uses of weapons, tools, and creative ways to kidnap the animals made the scene very action-packed and fun to watch. The baboons. The baboons are villains in the first movie that appear in a notable scene. They chase Jane down and try to maul her and kill her after her diary is stolen, which lures her into the eyes of these predatory beings. They are shown to be very vicious. This scene does a great job of introducing the various wildlife themes in the movie. I found their presence to be very suspenseful. There's just so much fast-paced action going on here. This scene does a great job showing just how impressive Tarzan's abilities are, and how his agility can outpace many of these baboons. They are extremely quick and vicious, but also coordinated. There are also so many beautiful shots of the jungle life in the movie, and there are many creative ways Tarzan and Jane can subdue these villains. I love the animation in this scene, especially where the trees break apart. I just love all these amazing shots of the jungle, and how the environment around them collapses as a result of their reckless actions. It's symbolic of how their destruction and viciousness comes back to bite them when the trees start collapsing on top of them. I'm gonna give these villains A tier. I love their fast-paced nature, and I love the animation in the scene. It's great seeing how fast-paced this scene is, while also showing how impressive Tarzan's abilities are. And it does a great job encapsulating the wildlife theme of the movie. Mama Gunda. Mama Gunda is a gorilla who is the antagonist of the second Tarzan movie, released in 2005. She is a compassionate and protective mother who lives in a mountain with her two sons. She is afraid of a supposed monster known as Zugor, who she describes as terrorizing her family. I love how the mountain is animated in this scene. It captures the cold, isolating, and distant setting that Mama Gunda resides in, which shows how dependent she is on the support of her sons. It adds a nice aesthetic to Gunda's relationship with her family, especially when the animals sleep together. It is greatly animated and feels very comforting to watch. A great deal of her life is outlined by instances of rejection and social ostracism, as she tells a bedtime story to her sons about a family of frogs who hopped from pond to pond, trying to find a community they would feel accepted by, only to be kicked out, which led her family to live in a rocky mountain area. She is deeply bitter and angry over the miserable circumstances her family is in. As other gorillas live in a beautiful jungle, she lives in a dull, cold mountain. Her goal is to find a better area for her family to live and to confront the supposed monster Zugor. So we already have quite a tragic story for a villain. She can't find a proper place to stay, she is being terrorized by a monster, and she has a hard time taking care of her family. I like that Gunda is persistent in trying to find a place for her sons to live in while also protecting them and providing them with company. I do like that her story is riddled with difficulty and a miserable circumstance. It adds more of a reasoning behind her role as the villain and portrays her to be a sympathetic character. Now she follows Tarzan and his group of friends as they leave the mountain, learning that Zugor wasn't a monster all along, which deeply upsets her. When entering the jungle, Gunda is impressed by how bright, sunny, and lively this environment is compared to the cold and isolated mountains where she lived. She plans to take over the jungle, destroy to scare off Tarzan and his friends. She has a disdain towards Tarzan for his friendliness towards Zugor, who her family had to live in fear of. Gunda commands her sons to destroy the jungle that Tarzan lives in, while she confronts Zugor. Despite their anger towards each other, the gorillas end up falling in love, and Gunda's plans of destruction are thwarted by Zugor becoming a father figure to her family. I like that Gunda got a happy ending because she lived in very miserable circumstances and was rejected from almost every community she tried to settle her family in. I like the fact that she has lots of love for her sons despite their problematic nature. Her hatred, anger, and villainous intentions throughout the film are mostly molded by her circumstances, which makes Gunda a more sympathetic and arguably realistic villain. I'm gonna give her A tier. I think she is a nicely written villain, but sadly isn't too memorable or doesn't play a huge role in the overall franchise. Udo and Kago. Udo and Kago are the sons of Mama Gunda. They appear as the villains in Tarzan 2. We are introduced to Kago, who is an aggressive, mean, and intimidating individual. He seems to be more angry and neurotic compared to his brother Udo, who is clumsy, lighthearted, and more of a jokester. There is a distinct contrast in the personalities of these brothers. Udo is a bit more curious, adventurous, and friendlier, while Kago is more introverted and can have fun on his own. This is further shown when their mom is telling a bedtime story involving frogs, where Kago Keigo is interested in the frogs getting hurt, while Udo cares more about their well-being and safety. Keigo seems to be more outraged at the mistreatment of his family, while Udo seems more blissfully unaware of what is happening. We see more differences in their personality when Keigo is violently punching the rocks while Udo is playfully jumping on them. I think the voice actors portray their personalities and dynamics well. I like how deep and intimidating Keigo's voice acting is in contrast to Udo, who is more dim-witted. I think their personalities are portrayed very well in their tone, mannerisms, and dynamics with each other. I like Keigo's intimidating personality in contrast to Udo's lighthearted clumsiness. I like Keigo's menacing, angry personality. Actor Ron Perlman does a great job portraying the character's aggressive personality, and his intimidating design suits him well. Udo and Keigo follow Tarzan's friends, where they spot Zugor, who has been terrorizing their family for many years. They destroy Zugor's treehouse in retaliation for the fear he put their family through. Udo is having fun with the environment around him, while Keigo is more engaged in destruction and anger. I like Keigo's displays of strength and destruction. It syncs well with his personality and aggressive demeanor. In one scene, his brother Udo finds Tarzan standing near a cliff and grabs him. Udo tries to throw him off, but Zugor saves him. Ironically, Zugor was originally portrayed to be this scary monster that Tarzan was afraid of when he ended up saving his life. Udo is easily scared off by many of Tarzan's tactics, but Keigo is more determined to defeat the protagonist. He chases him down, but is met with a barrage of coconuts thrown at him. He is then pushed off a cliff. I like the way these guys were subdued at the end. The creative ways Tarzan was able to use the resources around him to fend these gorillas off is a nicely animated scene. The scene where Keigo gets subdued by coconuts was very creative, action-packed, and hilarious. The scene did a great job portraying how creative, intelligent, and resourceful Tarzan is. The two gorillas end up getting a happy ending as they move towards a beautiful jungle with Zugor as their step gorilla dad, I guess. At first, I found these characters to be boring and dull, but as their screen time progressed, I found them to be fun to watch. Ron Perlman does a great job voice acting Keigo, and his displays of strength throughout the movie were fun to watch. I enjoyed the many creative ways Keigo was subdued at the end of the movie. He was stronger and more persistent, so it made sense for Tarzan to put a bit more effort into defeating him. I like that these two kind of contrast each other in many different ways, and many creative scenes illustrate their differences in personality, attitude, and overall mannerisms. Just like their mother, I'm gonna give these guys A tier. They're great villains. Naru and Sheeta. Naru and Sheeta are antagonists in the Disney series The Legend of Tarzan. They are known for attacking Tarzan and his friends, but are eventually scared off or subdued. They are vicious, wild animals that prey on others. In one instance, they attack a lady but are thrown off a cliff. In another instance, they try to attack an elephant but are scared away. In an episode where Jane introduces her three friends to her wildlife adventures, they serve as the primary antagonists. Naru and Sheeta appear and attack Jane and her friends. Tarzan arrives and saves them from the attack by burying Naru and Sheeta under a pile of rocks, which causes them to fall into a river. Now in this episode, I found their appearances to be fun, creative, and honestly great to watch. I love the use of the mountains, which helps showcase the agility and speed of Tarzan and the panthers. I also appreciate the parkour element, where Tarzan jumps through the steep mountains while the panthers chase him. The creative use of the environment adds a lot to the scene. I especially like how Tarzan skillfully parkoured around them and how they were ultimately defeated. They were distracted and then fell into a river, which was both a creative and funny way for them to be defeated. In the last episode, they are seen attacking a pilot but are also thrown away in another scene that I enjoyed. I like the different ways Tarzan maneuvers around them, but besides that, many of their appearances are lackluster. Some of their appearances in the show are slow-paced, choppy, and just not enjoyable to watch. These villains are very badly designed. You can't tell who is who, and they lack distinct abilities and personalities that would make them stick apart from each other, or even other villains in the franchise. There isn't anything interesting about them, and they are very hard to tell apart. At least with Sabor, his scenes served a purpose in the film, and were greatly animated and interesting to watch. Naru and Sheeta were maybe meant to replace Sabor, but at least Sabor had a good design, and his actions compelled an interesting plot point. Their rivalry with Tarzan fails to add much to the story. I hate how they slowly walk towards Jane when they are so close. I also don't like this scene where one of the panthers is chasing Jane and they are like an inch away from her, but can't get to her for some reason, and the animation just looks bad. They just aren't that interesting, and their rivalry with Tarzan fails to add anything to the story. I'm gonna give them D tier. I don't like their generic design, bland personalities, and some badly animated scenes. Queen Law. Queen Law is an antagonist in The Legend of Tarzan. She is the queen of the lost ancient city of Opar. She is guarded by leopards who are brainwashed to serve her using the powers of her golden staff. Her staff can disintegrate her enemies, and she can also orchestrate executions against those she opposes. In her first appearance, she has a crush on Tarzan, but that isn't reciprocated. I like the idea of this plot. Tarzan is involved in an ancient royal environment that challenges his jungle lifestyle. I like Queen Law's voice acting. It's nice, subtle, and calm. It's pretty well done. I like her design as well. It fits her identity as a queen, and the many different artifacts she's wearing are cool to look at. I can tell it's somewhat inspired by Jafar, and honestly I really like Queen Law's design. It looks pretty cool. It has definitely been inspired by characters from the past. Queen Law serves as a rival to Jane as she wants Tarzan all to herself. She honestly has nice chemistry with Tarzan. She is very fast, agile, and adaptable to the jungle life, as opposed to Jane, who's honestly just boring in this series. There are some beautifully animated scenes with Queen Law and Tarzan. There are these beautiful steep mountains where she confesses her love to him. The trees, the river, and the rockiness, it's very nice to watch, and I like that she is enticing him with all this beautiful scenery, in hopes of gaining his romantic affection. She eventually ties Tarzan up and threatens to execute him if he doesn't accept her offer as the king. She points a laser right above him, and the laser shoots right above his head, which is something I don't like, because now it's gonna go slowly towards him, which will give him enough time to break free. I don't understand why a character as powerful as Queen Law would have a laser that just slowly moves towards him. Like, get some better equipment for your executions. Why can't she just kill this guy? Why does the laser have to slowly move towards him until he breaks free and defeats her? It is so predictable. Now Porter does a nice trick shot which gets him freed, and eventually Queen Law is defeated with her temple burned down. It's cool seeing all those flames erupt around her as her temple burns away. Queen Law's first episode was okay, but the acting was subpar, the fight scenes were not fun to watch, and I just don't like Jane. She's very bland and has like no interesting qualities, as opposed to Queen Law, who is a much better fit for Tarzan. We see her again in an episode where her leopards rebel against her and she asks Tarzan for help. Jane has been kidnapped in Apar, and Tarzan, along with Queen Law, goes there to save her. I would have liked to know more about Apar, the Leopardman, and Queen Law. All these scenes happen so suddenly and move too quickly. It doesn't give us enough time to understand who these people are and what kind of abilities and lifestyles they lead. Jane is now the queen, and I like her makeover. She looks much better than her original design in the series. Queen Law ends up taking back the staff and reclaiming her position as the evil queen, but she is yet again defeated. As for this episode, I really like the display of Queen Law's abilities. She can crumple up the ground, summon monsters, and burn people away. I really like the way she's defeated at the end. It is an awesome and action-packed scene. Seeing her disintegrate into mud and smoke was an awesome visual effect, and a memorable way to defeat her. It's reminiscent of how she possessed all this power and beauty only to transform into something messy and grotesque. The city of Opar is also burned down and destroyed in another memorable and action-packed scene. The ending for this episode was kind of chilling and eerie. It hints that Queen Law is still a thing, and I like her villain laugh at the end. In her final appearance, known as the Return of Law, she is an evil spirit that takes control of Jane, who she uses as a way to rebuild Opar and become the queen again. She used magic to immortalize herself, which gives her the ability to possess others. It was a cool idea seeing her possess Jane and become the queen again. Her battle with Tarzan at the end was entertaining to watch. I like that she brought statues back to life as a way to fight Tarzan. I love the design of these beasts and how these statues were able to transform into lifelike beings. I like their strength, and I like Tarzan's ability to maneuver around them. It was a great fight scene to watch. In the end, Queen Law is transformed into a mouse, and the monk that told Tarzan she's an evil spirit takes her tiny mouse ass away. Her defeat at the end was very bad. Like, come on. She gets transformed into a mouse. That is so stupid and underwhelming. Overall, I'd say she's a solid villain. She is nicely designed and has a decent set of abilities that were utilized in pretty entertaining and memorable ways. She had a very good defeat in her second appearance, and her transformation in her last episode was cool to look at. I will give her a solid B tier. Nicholas Rokoff. Nicholas Rokoff is a one-time antagonist in the Legend of Tarzan's Treasure Hunt episode. He was a former aristocrat who had gained significant power and fortune during the Russian Empire. His status and wealth were presumably lost during the Russian Revolution. Desperate to regain his wealth and power, Rokoff is informed about a treasure located in Africa. Rokoff and his 3 henchmen head to Africa to locate the treasure. During the mission, Rokoff meets Tarzan and wants to recruit him in his mission to find the treasure. The plot for this villain's appearance is pretty interesting. I like the treasure hunting element that is in contrast to the jungle life theme of the show. This villain is portrayed to be strong and charismatic, but also kind of cocky and arrogant. He does have an interesting backstory and motive for appearing in the jungle. He's a once rich guy trying trying to obtain his wealth again. I also like how he called Jane the gem of the jungle. This guy and Tarzan play a game of chess, and this storyline does foreshadow their inevitable feud, as Rokaf insults Tarzan's intelligence, calling him a savage. Rokaf may see himself as more sophisticated and civilized than Tarzan as he insults his lifestyle. Throughout the episode, Rokaf sees himself as this intelligent strategist who can come up with all these clever ways to manipulate Tarzan, but it is shown to be quite the opposite. Tarzan refuses to hunt the treasure for Rokaf, which is why he and Jane end up getting kidnapped. Eventually, Rokaf and his 3 henchmen are defeated in various ways as Tarzan frees himself and uses his friends to defeat the guy and his assistants. It doesn't make sense that he would kidnap Tarzan and his wife simply because they didn't hunt the treasure with him. He insults Tarzan yet wants to work with him. His motive doesn't make much sense. Kidnapping Tarzan and his wife seems unnecessary. He is shown to be an intelligent military tactician, but he is outsmarted by several of Tarzan's animal friends. They sit on one guy, put another guy on top of a tree, and then the last guy gets pushed away. As for Rokaf, he gets presumably mauled by the Valley of Leopards he was warned about. I like the idea of the cat and mouse game Rokaf and his henchmen played with Tarzan. It had a nice build up to it, but ended up being very underwhelming. I wish there was more use of creative tactics, fight scenes, and ways these characters maneuver each other. It seems that all of Rokaf's men were easily defeated without them setting up elaborate traps, schemes, and other ways to at least put up a good fight. This final sequence is just very underwhelming. I would have liked to see more action between Rokaf's group and Tarzan's. This villain is honestly pretty decent. I like his voice acting, his use of military tactics, and his design. I like that his appearance was a nice touch to Clayton, but he doesn't have any notable skills or abilities. His henchmen mostly do the work for him. I would have liked to see more intelligent and creative ways he could have potentially defeated Tarzan. Him simply being trapped in the net wasn't enough. The fight between his henchmen and Tarzan's friend group was very one-sided. It was mostly his henchmen getting defeated without them putting much effort in terms of using their hunting skills, military strategies, and use of their environment. I'm gonna give him B tier. He's a decent villain, but was a bit underwhelming. He's got a great voice actor and a good design, and there are interesting elements about him, but the lack of skills and abilities as well as being easily defeated kind of sets him back. Fungi. Fungi is an antagonistic monkey who appears in an episode where Tarzan is up against an evil gorilla leader. Fungi first appears warning another gorilla that the leader of his family wants him back home. When the gorilla Gobu is watching Tarzan with his new gorilla group, Fungi appears again to warn him that the leader will be upset if he leaves the gorilla family. Understandably, Gobu is loyal to his gorilla family, but he should have the free will to join another group if he pleases. As for Fungi, he has a very evil, villainous grin that I enjoy looking at. His eyes also appear ruthless and evil. It's a good design. He just looks evil and creepy, and I like it. In another scene, he makes several threats directed at Gobu, claiming that his family's bones will be broken if he joins another family. The last we see of Fungi is him spectating the fight between Tarzan and the evil gorilla leader Tublat. When the evil gorilla leader is defeated, Fungi is banished from the gorilla family that he sought to ostracize Gobu from. Honestly, this is literally a nothing character. He has very brief moments and doesn't contribute anything to the plot. All he does is try to convince another gorilla that abandoning his family is a bad decision. I'm gonna place him at D tier. He is very bland and we don't see much of him at all. Tublat. Tublat is a rogue gorilla who is one of the main antagonists in the Tarzan franchise. He is the ruthless leader of Gobu's family, and I like Tublat's design. He looks very unhinged. I mean, it suits his personality well. The voice acting for the character is well done and suits his demeanor. In his first episode, Tublat is a fierce leader of the tight-knit gorilla group who is defeated by Tarzan and overruled for his abusive and ruthless tendencies. I like the many displays of Tublat's strength, but his first episode was a bit boring. The fight scene between him and Tarzan was just slow and boring to watch. Now in this episode, he's hyped up to be the leader, but the whole transition sequence was boring. There is no mention of his history, leadership, and how he came to power. His backstory is only briefly mentioned instead of it being developed. In his second episode, Tublat is captured by two men who plan to profit off his wild and eccentric behavior, and also because he's a gorilla. I like his displays of anger. I think they're great scenes to watch, but when Tarzan frees him from captivity, Tublat decides to also try to kill Tarzan even when he saves his life, which doesn't make sense. Why would you kill someone who tried to save your life? This villain is just irrationally angry and hateful. There is no real reasoning or backstory behind his madness. His only personality trait is that he's angry and violent. That's pretty much it. In his third appearance, titled The Revenge of Tublat, his origin story is explored as he tried to overthrow Kerchak. And I like the fight scene between the two gorillas. It's actually some decent animation. Tublat was about to defeat Kerchak, but Tarzan threw a bunch of coconuts at him, which got him defeated and shunned from the family he terrorized for many years. Tublat wants to dominate and control his family again, but Tarzan won't let him, so the two behemoths fight each other in a well-choreographed scene. Tublat is thrown into a river, presumably defeated, and saving the gorilla family from his hatred and wrath. The lack of an established motive for this villain makes him less interesting. Other villains of the past have had a clear established motive, reasoning, or some sort of perceived injustice or entitlement that they felt catalyzed their actions. It made them much more interesting as it allowed us to learn a lot more about their personalities and abilities. Tublat is simply angry and deranged. There is no motive or reasoning behind his actions. His design is good, he has a good voice actor, and he displays impressive strength. But this villain isn't that interesting to me. I'm gonna give him C tier. Zutho. Zutho is an antagonist who appears in an episode where Tarzan is expected to do him a favor because of an incident that happened years prior. Zutho is frustrated at a group of monkeys, so he approaches Tarzan and claims that a business arrangement needs to be made. The incident that happened years prior occurred when Tarzan approached Zutho's friend group and taught them how to make a spear. An accident caused by Tarzan led to the jungle burning down, causing lots of panic and distress among the animals. I did like the build up to this inevitable secret as to why Tarzan owes this guy a favor. When rain cools off the flames, Zutho blackmails Tarzan by claiming that he will tell his family he caused the flames to occur, unless he does a favor for him. The supposed favor is Tarzan scaring off the monkeys to avoid disturbing Zutho as he can't sleep because of their noise. Tarzan refuses to do so and eventually tells his mother that he is kind of responsible for the fire. His mother forgives him but scolds the mischievous baboon for threatening Tarzan and blaming him for the fire, which caused him to feel guilty about it for many years. It doesn't make sense that Zutho blamed Tarzan for the fire, as Tarzan was kind enough to teach him and his friends different survival skills. Tarzan even saved this guy from a burning tree. He saved his life. It doesn't make sense that this villain decided to blame him for the fire when it was a mere accident. He and his friends even saw Tarzan using the spear's sharp end, which created the flames. The fact that they didn't warn him that he was creating fire is kind of weird. Their failure to intervene in the accident deserves accountability as well. I enjoyed the sequences of flames surrounding the jungle and the destruction that it causes. And as for this villain, he was a fun character to watch, but he isn't that interesting or memorable. Even though I think the voice actor does a good job portraying this character, there aren't many interesting aspects about him. He is going in C tier. Mabaya. Mabaya is the rogue elephant who appeared in an episode where he is revealed to be a violent element who terrorized a family. He possesses brightly lit eyes which foreshadow his anger and destruction. He is very strong as he could break several trees and his crushing footsteps can cause lots of damage to the environment around him. He also makes these weird grunting noises which I do not like. Now there are potential clues as to what might be causing this destruction. Some claim it is genetic, others claim it was a negative environment, and one elephant claims that he ate a flower that made him go crazy. There is one scene where he breaks several of Porter's belongings while he's taking a shower, a scene that had a lot of potential. I mean, it could have been really funny if Porter had a genuine reaction to Mabaya's destruction. He just continued singing after his stuff was destroyed. I don't understand why he was so unfazed. Mabaya is eventually defeated when another elephant flicks him away. This is my favorite scene with this villain. It was kind of cool seeing him get trick-shotted. This ends Mabaya's reign of terror as he walks away defeated. This villain honestly sucks. He's just a crazy elephant that attacks people. Nothing unique or interesting about him. I'm gonna give him D tier. Hista. Hista is a python who appears in an episode where he terrorizes a gorilla family. He is seen in the shadows, instilling fear and terror among the community, as various birds and apes run for their lives. I really like the diversity of the animals being scared off. There are different types of birds and monkeys, which does a great job portraying the wildlife theme of the jungle by showcasing a variety of animals. It is fun, climactic, and suspenseful. Hista emerges from the disheveled jungle in a cool piece of animation. I really like his design. He looks huge, colorful, and deadly. His portrayal of strength, demonstrated by breaking the trees, is a great way to show just how monstrous he seems. I like the damage, destruction, and terror Hista causes in the opening scene, especially him attacking the baby gorilla who is saved by another gorilla named Moya, who is then saved by Tarzan, who uses jungle branches to scare off the snake in an impressive and creative display of the environment. The gorillas have a meeting to discuss the terrifying situation and state that the snake has been terrorizing their family for weeks. Now this is where this episode starts to have its problems. While I like that this has gotten the entire family bonded together, I would like to see more episodes that feature different types of animals and how they mitigate dangerous circumstances around the jungle. But the problem is that they eventually use this situation as a way to dethrone Tarzan's leadership and elect a new leader named Moyo. Tarzan saved Moyo's life but was still criticized for his ineffective leadership when he in fact managed to scare off the snake. The argument used against Tarzan is that he is a human while Moyo is a gorilla, so it would make sense for him to lead. It's just rehashing a major plot point from the original movie that is poorly executed and doesn't make sense, considering he saved them from the snake. This sequence had so much potential, it could have been a great opportunity for character development within the family, allowing us to learn interesting stories about their potential encounters with Hista. However, instead, it is used to demonize Tarzan, even though their arguments don't make sense. He was the reason Hista ran away, he essentially saved them, yet he's still taking the fall. Now, there are moments of great animation in this episode. I love the dark atmosphere of the jungle, I like seeing the treehouse at night, and I like seeing the tar pit the gorillas get stuck in. I liked Hista's defeat at the end. Him drowning in the tar pit was really cool to watch. However, he was pretty underwhelming. He was very slow in his movements, which wasted a lot of potential. There could have been more creative fight scenes where his speed, precision, and strength were utilized to his advantage. Instead, he just stands there when the gorillas are trapped instead of attacking them. Him being kind of taken down by rocks being thrown at him makes him seem weak and ineffective, not the terrifying monster that was supposed to be terrorizing the entire family. This series doesn't do a great job of portraying him as a threatening, imposing figure when he is defeated so easily and doesn't have an intense fight scene against Tarzan or the gorillas at the end. He just stands there while they are trapped in mud. I wish they made better use of his speed and flexibility, which could have led to some great action-packed sequences. His defeat at the end was creative and cool to watch, but I place him in C tier. He's an okay villain. Jean Stekwa. Jean Stekwa is the lieutenant colonel who is a memorable villain in the series. In his first appearance, he and his troops were intending on bringing a group of so-called criminals to justice. I really like the opening scene where he pulls out a map and states that he needs to bring his enemies to justice. The line sounded really cool, and what really delivered it was the map he pulled out afterwards. It was a nice symbolic touch. Jean is an authoritarian who believes that everyone should follow his orders. The men who disobeyed his orders are Hugo and Haft, who have fled to a jungle and befriended Tarzan. Jean and his men track them down and a fight ensued. I found the scene where Jean and his men search around the jungle to be great to watch. Their dynamics along with their use of weaponry is a cool aesthetic. It makes them look like they're searching for a coveted treasure. I also found the fight scene to be decent too. It was suspenseful and I like how Tarzan glides through all the bullets that were fired at him. I also like how Hugo and Haft used a boat as a way to escape. It was a nice nod to the first movie. Hugo and Haft are captured and Jean orders them to be executed. I really like the opening transitions that show their execution. The gloomy weather and bats flying around really capture a grim vibe, which is fitting for the execution. As Hugo and Haft are walked to the torture chamber, Tarzan of course arrives and defeats Jean and the guards. He tells them to leave and saves Hugo and Haft from being pushed off a cliff. There's a lot I like about the fight scene between Jean and Tarzan at the end. The forest being engulfed in flames, Tainter's destruction, Tarzan being trapped with a net, which was a really cool comeback by Jean as most of the fight was him getting beat by Tarzan, so it was nice for him to pull an unexpected move. I also like when Tarzan tackles him. The slow motion effect was really cool, showing how strong Tarzan is. Honestly, I really like this villain so far. His design is really cool and I like how intimidating and fierce he is. I like the creative ways his swordsmanship skills were shown, and the torture chamber he used against Hugo and Haft was a nice display of cruelty. We see Jean in another episode where he vows revenge against Hugo and Haft. I like the transition sequence from Hugo and Haft to Jean. He tracks Hugo and Haft down and sends them to a prison known as Cape Doom. I really like how Jean traps Tarzan and the two guys in these nets. It shows that he's a very calculating villain. We are shown the Cape Doom prison and I love the animation in this scene. It captures such a vibe with the sea and the isolated towers. Tarzan infiltrates the prison and tries to free Hugo and Haft, but he gets captured and becomes a new inmate. This is probably one of the best scenes in the show. Seeing the beautifully animated river, seeing Tarzan sneaking in, it was a very captivating scene. Eventually, Tarzan, Hugo, and Haft steal the keys from one of the guards and escape the prison. Again, another action-packed sequence with great animation. Hugo and Haft successfully escape, but Tarzan is captured by one of Jean's guards and is ordered executed by hanging. However, Tarzan's friend Renard arrives and disguises himself as a highly decorated military leader. Since Jean is an authoritarian figure, he has to follow the orders of his superiors, so he frees Tarzan from the prison. Overall, I found this episode to be very entertaining, suspenseful, action-packed, and overall the best episode of the series. Jean's defeat at the end is very creative as he tries to kill Hugo and Haft because they are obliged by his orders to burn down a village. The animation was top-notch and I enjoyed many moments of it. Jean Stekwa is a great villain. He is well designed, creative, and intelligent. His fight scenes with Tarzan were great and his tactics of trapping and his torture methods were well executed and villainous. He is a very calculating tactician, but ultimately couldn't keep up with Tarzan's more street smarts. It's great seeing the contrast of Jean's intelligence in planning, calculating, and creative ways to orchestrate traps that would subdue Tarzan, in contrast to Tarzan's intrinsic abilities such as his flexibility, acrobatics, and ability to adapt in almost every negative circumstance. And honestly, Jean's second episode was just so good it places him in A tier. Waltham. Waltham is a reformed villain who is the sister of William Clayton. She is grieving the loss of her brother Clayton, who was killed in the movie. She seeks vengeance against Tarzan as she believes he is responsible for the death of her brother. The idea has a lot of potential. I like the idea of rehashing plots from the iconic movie and adding an interesting subplot where the main villain's sister seeks vengeance for her brother. It's an interesting idea that has a lot of potential. Waltham has arrived in the African jungles where she is posing as a photographer with Tarzan as her tour guide. She is very bitter and vengeful as she wants Tarzan to be held accountable for the death of her brother Clayton. As part of her revenge plot, she orchestrates the kidnapping of Tarzan's 4 friends. The kidnapping scenes were very underwhelming. I would have liked to see some creative stunts pulled, and we don't even get to see Jane being kidnapped. The backstory behind Waltham is also kind of dull. I would have liked to see her origin story explored a bit better. How was she even told that Tarzan was responsible for Clayton's death? What was her relationship with Clayton like? Did she know about his plans to kidnap all the animals in the movie? A lot of questions have the potential to be explored in this episode, but it was sadly a missed opportunity. The pacing is slow, it's just Waltham and Tarzan talking, and the inevitable build-up to their feud is not executed properly. Tarzan is eventually informed that his friends have been kidnapped, and Waltham gives him a necklace that has a photo of Clayton, which is not a fun way to introduce the plot of the episode. Tarzan rightfully defends his final interaction with Clayton as she shot him, slashed him, and kidnapped his friends, so Clayton is clearly in the wrong, yet his sister insists that Tarzan is the monster here. Waltham tells him that all his friends have been trapped and he must save them. That makes no sense for a villain. Why would she kidnap these people and then tell him where they are? If she is so insistent on revenge that she plans and executes their demise in such an efficient manner, why would she tell him where they're located? That makes no sense. She shoots a poison dart at Tarzan and pulls out a timer, so Tarzan has to save all his friends before he succumbs to the poison and dies. I find this cat and mouse thing to be a bit underwhelming. There are barely any action-packed scenes that would make it more enjoyable. I don't understand the motivations for this villain. Why did she kidnap his friends and then allow Tarzan himself to locate them? This episode is very boring and drawn out. I mean, one good thing about it was when Tarzan saved Tainter. I mean, the way he kicked the 300-pound elephant from the alligator was cool to watch, and I liked the build-up to it. Also, Porter's kidnapping scene was pretty cool as well. Even though all his friends have been saved, Tarzan starts to succumb to the poison. Waltham has the antidote that can cure him, however 2 panthers attack her, but Tarzan intervenes by wrestling them away, saving her life. He is badly wounded from the attack, so Waltham saves his life by giving him the antidote to the poison. The two make amends and are no longer enemies. Overall, she's a pretty mediocre villain. The idea had good potential, but there were many poorly animated scenes, the motive and planning made no sense, and she is just kind of bland. Overall, she's going in D tier. Ian McTeague. Ian McTeague is a greedy businessman who appears in an episode where he is part of an illegal mining operation. He is running the operation in hopes of finding gold that will make him rich. The problem is that he is contaminating the environment with his practices, which gets the attention of Tarzan. We see the operation taking place in an opening scene with great animation and detail. Tarzan and the Waziri tribe member Basuli plan to infiltrate the operation and disrupt Ian's plans. As they both sneak into the operation, they get a good glimpse of what the operation entails, as there are several miners digging coal to find gold and disintegrating them using toxic gases which are polluting the mountains, by releasing chemicals into the air. We also see the water supply being contaminated, and we are also told that the dirty water flowing into the river poisons a lot of people and animals. I love all the intricate details of the machines that are being operated. I love all the little details from the miners digging the coal to the barrel, railroad, and ladders. All these details just fit so well. It makes the scene more intense in a way. There's so much Tarzan has to maneuver around. Tarzan confronts Ian McTeague, who is shown to be an arrogant businessman who disregards the feelings of others for material gain. He tells Ian to stop the operation as the river is being poisoned, but he is met with gunfire as the miners open fire against Tarzan. He escapes the gunfire but gets caught by the miners as he tries to save Basuli. Ian orders them to be tied up and restrained as they are disrupting the operation. Overall, I like this episode so far. I like the introduction of the Waziri tribe, the interesting plot, and the great animation, and Ian is an enjoyable villain so far. Also, Also, I like how action-packed some of the scenes are. It is really exciting to see how this will play out. Jane and Porter try to save Tarzan and Basuli by disguising themselves as government officials performing a safety check. They find several safety hazards before going into the warehouse where they see two men tied up and held at gunpoint. This was a creative way to introduce Porter and Jane into the plot. The scene had some really nice dialogue and great acting as well. Porter and Jane claim that the operation has to be shut down, but Ian orders them both to be tied up. All four of the protagonists are tied up, but soon free themselves from captivity. The escape scene was pretty cool. I like seeing Tarzan and Basuli glide, and the amount of action and suspense displayed in the episode is greatly choreographed. We also get a pretty cool Mario Kart-esque chase scene, which is aligned with Tarzan and Basuli gliding through the caves to save their friends. That ends when they push a log that sends the miners away, which was absolutely awesome. All the hostages escape safely, but Ian's desire for vengeance gets the best of him as he orders the firebombing of the Waziri village. The miners use missiles to destroy their village home in an incredibly animated and intense scene. That was just awesome to watch. In retaliation, the tribe decides to block the river's water supply as Ian will have no way to dispose of the toxic chemicals the operation produces. As Ian arrives at the blockage, the tribe uses the river to destroy the mining operation and flood away the workers in a creative and cleverly devised strategy. I really like the way Ian is defeated, using the environment he tried to contaminate against him. It is honestly a really effective scene. It is creative, memorable, and a great way to defeat this villain. This is an amazing episode. I love the animation, the intense action sequences, the subplot of the tribe and how they end up forming a rivalry with the miners. I love how the mining operation is animated, a lot of great details put to use. There are also lots of great characters and great dialogue as well. Overall, this was a very fun, action-packed, and memorable episode. As for Ian himself, he is a pretty good villain. He is greatly designed, has good voice acting, plays his part in the conflict. One problem is that we don't get to see him much. The episode is mostly focused on the mining operation itself, but I like that as its central focus. This episode was honestly amazing. I greatly enjoyed it, and because of that, I'm gonna give him A tier. While he is a pretty good villain, the episode itself carries him to that tier. Sam Philander. Sam Philander is an acclaimed doctor and a major antagonist in the series. He is the academic rival of Porter, and in his first appearance, we see him inside Porter's office, plagiarizing his work and going through his belongings. Sam theorizes that Porter moved to the jungle to be famous and accelerate his research. So far, the premise is interesting. I like the idea of Porter having an academic rival, as it makes him more interesting as a character. Sam heads to Africa and confronts Porter, who is mortified to see his arch nemesis in the jungle. One scene I enjoyed was the moment when Porter was tripped. It's a cool way to introduce their rivalry. To learn more about Porter's life in the jungle, Sam decides to spy on him, while Porter worries that his rival will find scientific discoveries that could undermine his success. He states that the doctor is a dreadful man who took credit for his discovery of dinosaurs that landed on the front page of a newspaper. Tarzan states that he discovered a place filled with dinosaurs called Pellucidar, which can allow Porter to make scientific discoveries. This is honestly a pretty interesting plot. I like how it opens up speculation about the possibility that dinosaurs could still exist in extinct and abandoned areas. I also like the dialogue and feud between Sam and Porter, which allows Porter to develop as a character and gives him a lot of potential. While Porter heads to Pellucidar, Sam spies on him from a distance and decides to follow his crew. We are introduced to the land of Pellucidar in a beautifully animated scene where the camera tilts to the side to show just how amazing and lively this environment is. Porter, Jane, and Tarzan are happy to be at Pellucidar, but they are met by Sam Philander, who intends to take credit for the discovery of this dinosaur land. Porter is furious as Sam has been taking credit for his work for many years. This is further shown when Sam takes a photo of holes in the ground that are fuming with methane, which was found by Porter. An angry rhino chases Tarzan through the jungle in a highly climactic and action-packed sequence. It is eventually scared away, and Sam takes a photo of the animal to document its existence, hoping that it will advance his career as a doctor. Porter is furious that Sam has taken photos that could alter the course of history while he has yet to discover anything. The group continues their adventure, with Sam hoping that his discoveries will bring him fame and glory. During their tour of Dinosaur Land, Sam finds a nest full of dinosaur eggs and states that he will be the most famous scientist in history if he takes the eggs with him. As part of his research, a dinosaur appears out of nowhere and destroys the jungle, using their large presence and strength. Tarzan, Jane, Porter, and Sam all run to a cave to seek cover from the dinosaur. The group finds something hatching inside Porter's backpack, which is revealed to be a baby dinosaur. As the group hides in the cave, the dinosaur's sharp, drooly teeth, which is an amazing visual effect, appears as its massive head pushes through the cave's entrance. Tarzan escapes the cave and glides through the vicious dinosaur, which was really cool to watch. Tarzan uses a rope to tie up and restrain the angry dinosaur, but it breaks free and Tarzan is now trapped as a result. Jane frees him and Porter gives the baby dinosaur to the angry dinosaur, who is revealed to be female. She grows affectionate towards the baby, and I really like this heartfelt, sweet, and tender moment between Porter and the dinosaur. He states that he understands and can empathize with the struggles of parenthood. A very creative way to introduce a deep moment in the franchise that greatly develops Porter as a character. However, it turns out that the mama dinosaur is still angry and wants to hurt the humans. That really sucks. This could have been a beautiful and creative way to resolve the conflict, leaving both parties feeling content, but the fact that the mama dinosaur remains angry and vengeful destroys the entire point of the scene. Sam, on the other hand, is shown to be very selfish and only concerned about his well-being, as he gloats about the discoveries he's photographed that will make him famous. This is where Sam is shown to be villainous, as he is selfish and values material gain over developing a genuine introspective relationship with Tarzan and his friends. He seems to only pretend to bond with the group so he could take photos and bask in his glory. Porter and his friends have been abandoned by his arch-nemesis, but they successfully escape the land of Pellucidar, surprising Sam Philander. Sam is shocked to see that Porter and his friends are still alive, but he still gloats about how he has real-life proof that dinosaurs are real, while his enemy Porter has nothing. Sam goes to a prestigious university, excited to show off his discoveries, only for his camera not to work properly. As in an earlier scene, a monkey was seen playing around with and eventually breaking the camera. With nothing to show, he is left defeated and humiliated. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. It had amazing animation, a creative storyline, and lots of adventure. I really liked seeing Tarzan fight dinosaurs. I thought it was a really creative and fun concept to introduce, and that being intertwined with a rival for Porter was honestly awesome. The episode featured great animation and action-packed scene. It had a great concept behind it and even a great title, with the hidden world revealing the land of dinosaurs. The rivalry between Porter and Sam seems to be a very interesting thing to watch so far, with lots of potential for action-packed sequences and memorable storylines. In his second appearance, he breaks into Porter's tent and steals a photo of a rare silverback ape, following the theme of the last episode, trying to take credit for his work. Porter and Tarzan hide behind bushes to track down the thief, who they find to be Sam. Porter is mortified to see Sam reading all his notes, discoveries, and research on the silver ape. I like the idea of showcasing different rare species in the jungle and combining that with the theme of Sam's greed and desire for recognition. I think they blend well to create the central conflict for the episode. Sam is impressed by Porter's research of the rare silver ape Mangani and states that it will put him on the top of the scientific world. Porter and Tarzan confront Sam, only for them to be trapped and guarded by members of Philander's crew. He plans to kidnap the silver ape and sell him to a museum for profit. He tracks down the silver ape in a jungle, who is beautifully animated and designed. I love how luxurious, flashy, and silver he is, showcasing just how valuable he is. This ties into Sam's personality and desire for glory. He then traps Mangani the ape in a clever and calculating way by using another gorilla's voice to lure him. He orders Mangani to be taken into a ship where they will send him to a museum. I love that we get to see Sam's villainous scheme put into action, which is synchronized with the story of a spirit ape who is meant to heal the jungle. Tarzan and Porter track down the ship where Mangani is caged. I like the intense sequence of them sneaking onto the ship. It is greatly animated and a nice nod to the film. I really like that the episode does provide an interesting plot point and development for this villain. He's kind of a mix of Clayton and Porter. Tarzan tries to free Mangani, but Sam finds him and pushes him inside the basement and locks him up too. Porter manages to run into the basement where both of the kidnapped characters are located. The crewmates find Porter and grab him, taking him away from the badly injured Tarzan. This sequence is honestly intense and captivating. The music, the animation, and Tarzan lying unconscious on the ground all add to the impact. Porter, Tarzan, and Mangani are all tied up as Sam plans to go to England to sell the silver ape for profit. I think this episode is one of the best in terms of character development. We get to see how devoted and loyal Porter is and how much he cares about Tarzan. He genuinely tries his best to free him and even disregards his safety for the sake of his friend. Sam is informed that Mangani the ape has disappeared and Tarzan grabs him and throws him into a little hole. A funny way to defeat the villain. Tarzan takes control of the ship and Porter frees Mangani. The protagonists return home safely while the antagonist is humiliated once again. Honestly, this was a very fun, entertaining, and action-packed episode. Sam's dynamics with his crewmates and the plan they embarked on were very creative and interesting. I like the design of Mangani. I think he was a great addition to the episode, making it more fun and exciting while also providing a strong contrast to Sam. Sam's use of the ship also added a lot more memorable, engaging, and entertaining moments. This was a really fun episode, and Sam seems to be a cool villain so far. In his third appearance, we get an incredible opening of Sam vowing vengeance against Porter, stating that the events of the last 2 episodes brought him immense humiliation and poverty. His motivations are somewhat relatable. He feels a sense of injustice and resentment, dwelling on his failures and instances of humiliation. Eventually, his excitement and mania take a drastic turn when one of the pencils he throws lands in a bunch of chemical bottles. The formula then explodes, destroying his hard work. 2 of his crewmates barge in, feeling angry and distraught as Sam owes them money. Sam doesn't have the money but states that if they capture Tarzan from the jungle, they can use him for cash and commodities that can compensate for what he owes them. He states that a scientific discovery of this magnitude will bring fame and fortune to both men working for him. We then get a nice homage to Tarzan's possible downfall as a photo of him burns in acid. I like the nice touch of symbolism there. I really enjoyed the opening of this episode. It was very cool to watch the effects of his actions from the last 2 episodes, and his desire for vengeance was greatly animated and portrayed through the many uses of dialogue and creative symbolism. The rest of the episode is unfortunately very boring and stupid. Porter is dressed up as Tarzan and Sam convinces them that he is Tarzan, but they eventually find out he isn't, and that gets them angry. They're eventually scared off, and Sam is eventually scared off as well. The part when they randomly start chasing Porter down with their swords out of nowhere is a funny and creative gag. It was hilarious seeing these guys chase Porter down for no reason. Besides that, the episode was very boring, slow-paced, and not nearly as creative as the last 2. It had a great opening scene that delivered a lot of potential, but there aren't many moments that develop their rivalry. I feel like Sam's second defeat would have been a great way to end his story arc. I mean, an old man dressed as Tarzan now has to play along to avoid the anger of these 2 guys. It's such a weird plot. This plot is really stupid. Why would they think Porter pretending to be Tarzan would be a good idea for an episode? There are no intense action sequences or great animation either. It adds very little to their rivalry and feels completely unnecessary to include him in this episode. We already know they're gonna figure out that Porter isn't actually Tarzan and Sam is gonna lose again. In his 4th and final appearance, we see him living in a dirty and run-down apartment, which is a really cool depiction of how badly Sam's career has plummeted as a result of his choices. It's a nice touch of symbolism that has great animation behind it. An animated adaptation of the franchise's creator, Edgar Burrows, visits Sam Philander's apartment as he saw an article about his experiences with Tarzan and wants to know more about who he is. Sam rehashes several of the events that have occurred in the series, giving him some really interesting lore. However, his ego is eventually threatened as he feels that Edgar is mocking him, so he kicks him out, thus ending his story in the franchise. I really find Sam's bitterness and negative life trajectory as a result of his cockiness and willingness to partake in the feud with Tarzan to be very tragic yet relatable. It seems he displays so much envy and vengeance towards him and Porter. I like this design and portrayal of Sam Philander. I really like how scruffy and disheveled he looks. It's a nice touch of how he has fallen into relative obscurity. It's a great design that does a good job developing his personality. I'm gonna give this guy A tier. He is close to S, but his 3rd appearance was just terrible. I enjoyed this villain, and the episodes he appeared in were very memorable and action-packed, and they did a great job portraying him. He is a very effective rival to Porter, and his episodes definitely fit the theme of adventure this show tries to deliver. Thaddeus Hunt and his minions. Thaddeus Hunt and his minions were villains who kidnapped Tarzan and President Teddy Roosevelt. Thaddeus planned to kidnap President Roosevelt by tracking him down on his trip to Africa. Thaddeus's minions Jake and Sam will grab him and take him to a blimp where the pilot Jones will hold him hostage and try to attain money from the US government. They decipher that Roosevelt will be in a secluded jungle, which will give them an opportunity to engage in the kidnapping. I like that Thaddeus was able to identify errors in the president's movement and security, which allows him the opportunity to coordinate such a plan. This makes him a fairly calculated and strategic individual. Roosevelt arrives at the African safari where he is greeted by Porter and Jane, who are very excited to see him. The animation here seems so choppy. I mean, his mouth doesn't even move properly when he speaks. The same thing happens with Porter and Jane. Their mouths barely move when they talk. The animation can appear choppy and not very fluid, which sometimes ruins the personality of these characters when the way they speak looks so weird. Thaddeus' minions Jake and Sam introduce themselves to President Roosevelt and ask to be his tour guide. Roosevelt denies their offer and chooses Tarzan to be his tour guide as he is highly impressed by his physique and reflexes. He seems to take a very keen interest in Tarzan. Seriously, how does Tarzan get himself involved in so many wacky situations? He fights dinosaurs, meets the president, and escapes from prison. For a guy living in an isolated jungle, he sure gets himself into a lot of trouble. Roosevelt is very excited to have Tarzan as his tour guide, and he is given a great expedition by the Jungle Man, who informs him about his background, which further entices Roosevelt. During the tour, he gets kidnapped and tied up in a boat. I didn't like the moments with Tarzan and Roosevelt. They were very boring. Roosevelt as a character kind of sucks, honestly. Why was he even included? Jake and Sam kidnap Roosevelt, and as Tarzan appears on the boat, ready to confront them, he manages to beat Jake. However, Tarzan's head gets in the way of the water, which subdues him and leads him to being tied up. The boat fight sequence was okay, I guess. To some extent, it was kind of choppy and poorly animated with barely any action. It was also very short, and the way they randomly kidnapped Roosevelt was kind of dumb and poorly executed. They are tied up and thrown in jail, where Thaddeus introduces himself to the president and the Jungle Man. Thaddeus gloats about his actions and states that the jail is their new home. He also mentions that they will be transferred to another facility. I really like his voice acting. He sounds deep and calm, giving off a very strange yet great vibe for a villain. His appearance was rather brief, but I enjoyed his short time gloating about his kidnapping. He comes across as confident, charming, and accomplished in a way. The way he is presented as such a cocky and imposing figure was something I really enjoyed seeing. Tarzan uses his combat skills to free himself from captivity, and then frees Roosevelt using a knife he disarmed from Jake. Honestly, this was a pretty underwhelming way for him to escape. Jake just got kicked and disarmed. Also, the animation looks kind of bland. It's decent for the isolated prison environment it portrays, but I wish they had put more effort into it. They managed to subdue Thaddeus' crew and escape the prison. While I kind of like this villain, we rarely get to see him, the depths of his planning, who he is, or why he decided to track down and kidnap the president. We know that he is a greedy and cocky individual, but I wish we got to see more character development and a deeper look into his planning and orchestration. Most of the episode focuses on Teddy Roosevelt trying to navigate the jungle, which doesn't give Thaddeus and his crew enough screen time. Tarzan and Roosevelt are aimlessly wandering in the jungle where smoke darts are fired at them, which is honestly pretty cool to watch. I actually kind of like this scene. It is very climactic and enjoyable. Seeing an actual presidential assassination attempt occur on the show is pretty wild, honestly. The wide range of weaponry they display is pretty cool. They manage to hide and escape from the attack, but they are met by the villains again, who fire a net at Tarzan, which lands right as he jumps to save Roosevelt, which was actually pretty cool to watch. It was a nice trick shot he landed. I mean, his aim was on point there. Roosevelt is captured by Thaddeus and brought up to a blimp piloted by Jones. Jake is thrown out of the blimp and lands on Tainter, which was really funny. I mean, the way this guy gets untangled and lands on the elephant only to be even more terrified is a creative gag I enjoyed. Tarzan arrives at the blimp and sees Roosevelt tied up with Jones guarding him. Tarzan scares Jones away, which gets him to free Roosevelt. Thaddeus is very angry from his plans being disrupted, so he plans to kill Roosevelt using a grenade that will destroy the blimp. He detonates the bomb, but he is tied up by the chain, which allows Tarzan and Roosevelt to escape as the blimp is bombed in an incredible scene. I love the build up to it, with Thaddeus making a very clumsy mistake. It was honestly an incredible way to defeat this villain. We eventually see Thaddeus and the rest of his crew arrested, which honestly sucks. I would have liked to see Thaddeus suffer a morbid death. I mean, how did he even survive that explosion on the blimp? It was such an incredible way to defeat him, and because of that, he's going to B tier. While I hate that he just got arrested, I mean, him dying in that explosion would have been so dark for a kid's show. Seeing the villain get blown up in a blimp was honestly really cool, despite the cop-out at the end. I'm going to give Thaddeus' minions C tier. While I think they served their purpose in the story, especially the pilot Jones, they had fairly bland personalities and not much character development. Some of their action sequences also kind of sucked. Mavirio. Mavirio is a member of the Waziri tribe who appears in an episode where he orchestrates a series of attacks against Tarzan, and a fellow Waziri tribe member out of jealousy and hatred. I really like this villain's design and accent. It suits him well for the role of a tribe member. We see him at a wedding ceremony for his tribe mate Basuli, who whom he is deeply jealous of. Basuli must head to a tall mountain and bring back an eagle's feather as part of his tribe's ancient marriage ritual. He picks Tarzan to accompany him on the journey, which deeply upsets Mavirio. Mavirio orchestrates a series of attacks, including a rhino stampede and dropping piles of rocks upon the men as they enter the mountain. The mountain they are in is described as an elephant's graveyard. It is honestly really beautifully designed. It reminds me of the mountain in Tarzan 2. I really like how this mountain is animated from the sky to the bones that appear on it. It adds an intense feel to it. I also really love the way they parkour around the rocks that Mavirio throws at them. While Tarzan manages to impressively glide through the rocks being dropped onto him, Basuli is injured by them. After Mavirio drops a huge rock on the injured tribe member, nearly killing him, Tarzan confronts Mavirio and wrestles him. We hear that the reason why he was attacking both men is that he was envious of Basuli's position as a highly regarded member of the Waziri tribe, and his arranged marriage. He is upset that Basuli gets all the recognition from the tribe while he gets nothing. He was intentionally trying to sabotage Basuli's attainment of the feather that needed to be brought in order to marry his fiancée. I really like the intense sequences of piles of rocks being dropped onto Tarzan and Basuli, along with hearing about Mavirio's motivations. The mountain was one of the best pieces of animation in the franchise. The way they parkour around the rocks Mavirio is throwing at them was honestly incredible. Basuli recovers from his injuries and Mavirio challenges him to a duel, as that is the tribe's sacred tradition. The fight scene between Mavirio and Basuli is a bit slow paced, but honestly pretty nice. I like that they're fighting in these beautiful mountains, and I like how Mavirio uses bones to attack him. Mavirio and Basuli push themselves off a cliff, hanging for dear life. Tarzan saves both men, and Mavirio is banished from the tribe for his acts of attempted murder. I really like the destruction he causes to Tarzan and Basuli. I like the rock stampede that he caused, and the rhino attack was also kind of cool. The fight scene between him and Basuli was also okay. I like Mavirio's motivations for his actions, stemming from jealousy and a sense of envy and bitterness, as Basuli has everything Mavirio could ask for. His motives and actions are pretty relatable. I'm gonna give this guy B tier. I think he is a pretty good villain that is decently developed and contributed to some very incredible scenes. Niels and Mercus. Niels and Mercus are a duo who appear in an episode as greedy jewelry thieves. They used a boat to travel to a shop where they introduced themselves as geologists who have come to study the volcano in the jungle. They are obviously lying and using this as a ploy to attain valuable minerals. I like the opening of them at the boat. I like the idea of these two traveling to the jungle, seeing it as a potential investment. There is also somewhat of a contrast between their personalities. Mercus is more angry, impulsive, and paranoid, while Niels is more charming, calculating, and handles all the planning in their schemes. At the shop, they are told that Tarzan can guide them to the volcano as he knows the jungle very well. They travel to the jungle and approach Tarzan. The animation in these sequences is actually quite nice. I like seeing the ship, the colorful trees, the sea background, and the landing spot. It presents a nice contrast and blends well with the plot, as Niels and Mercus are travelers seeking to study the jungle's atmosphere. They tell Tarzan that they are here to study the volcano, which is a lie, as Tarzan cleverly detects. So they tell him why they're really here, and it's because they want to find diamonds that are believed to be located in a volcano. They cleverly state that the diamonds are gifts given to their spouse, which entices Tarzan as it can be a potential gift for Jane. I don't like the way these characters move or speak. It doesn't feel fluid and just looks kind of weird. It's very choppy. However, I like the background animation a lot, particularly the jungles and the general atmosphere, but the way the characters move and speak can feel off-putting. These villains don't really have much personality or interesting qualities. They're simply portrayed as con men without a clear objective other than getting rich. We don't see much of their planning, preparation, or dynamic, making them kind of bland. Niels is just a stereotypical greedy, egotistical villain we've seen many times before. The villains are at a log cabin that is really cool to see. I really like how that treehouse looks. It feels more natural being seen as a wooden cabin and blends in well with the environment. In the cabin, Tarzan agrees to locate the diamonds on the condition that he will have one for Jane. While they're traveling along with Tainter, crocodiles appear out of nowhere and attack the duo. Tarzan intervenes and saves their lives. That was a very pointless scene. It contributed nothing to the story, and it's just Tarzan displaying his impressive abilities. As they approach the volcano cave, Mercus's paranoid tendencies get him to point a shotgun at Tarzan. Niels takes the shotgun away from him, and while I think it is decent character development that helps set the contrast between the two characters, it makes no sense why he'd point a gun at Tarzan if he is trying to attain minerals from him. It would make no sense for them to kill him. That was just weird. It isn't even explained properly. I honestly really like the idea of volcanoes containing potential valuable items. It is fitting for the show's premise, but this idea was also done so much better in the mining operation episode. That episode was great. This episode doesn't seem that interesting at all, and these villains don't stand out. They enter the volcano cave and find a huge amount of diamonds, with the villains excitedly stating that they are rich and have found the luxury they've been seeking. They have bags full of diamonds, but they then point a gun at Tarzan, stating that they don't want their diamonds to be stolen. This is stupid. They made a promise stating that Tarzan could take a couple diamonds with him. They have bags full of diamonds, yet they still want to rip him off for some reason. He only took 2 diamonds. I mean, he literally helped them attain these diamonds, showed them where they were, and then they pointed a gun at him as a way to return the favor. They are already pretty bland villains with generic personalities, barely any abilities, and boring scenes. But what really makes them terrible villains is the fact that they attained their goal of getting diamonds from Tarzan, but they don't want him to get just a couple for himself. Their irrational greed and violence makes no sense. What was their reason for duping Tarzan when he saved their lives and did his best to help them? Anyways, they steal the diamonds and use their dynamite to blow up the cave, which Niels points out was a terrible thing to do because now they will never get the diamonds. Why did they escape with the diamonds and blow up the cave? If their goal was to come back and attain the diamonds at a later time, then why did they pick Tarzan to be their tour guide just to stab him in the back? Their actions make no sense. They could have just let Tarzan have a few diamonds and then leave with the rest and become insanely rich. If they can just cooperate with him and let him have a couple of diamonds, then they can be wealthy. Now Tarzan and his family are trapped in a volcano and they manage to escape in an incredible way that was fun to watch. I really enjoyed watching Tarzan glide through those volcanoes and made him look really cool. Eventually the villains are arrested, but I'm gonna give them F tier. I am sorry, but they are so dumb. If they had just given Tarzan 2 diamonds as he asked, they could have been so rich. Tarzan saved their lives and showed them where the diamonds were. It makes no sense as to why they would bear any ill will towards him. Robert Candler. Robert Candler is the final villain of the franchise, an espionage agent and a childhood friend of Jane. He is first seen piloting a plane in an intense shootout with Captain Nigel Taylor, who is pursuing him to retrieve the secret codes Robert had previously stolen. While I like the way Robert maneuvers around the shots being fired by using his piloting skills, this scene is very weird. It is confusing and happens so suddenly without any explanation. Why are we seeing 2 characters we don't know having a shootout with each other in planes? What does this have to do with the show? Robert manages to shoot Nigel's plane down and escape the situation. We learn that Robert is somewhat obsessed with Jane as he has a photo of her on his plane. He meets Jane and her husband Tarzan after they find him fixing his plane that has malfunctioned. Jane and Robert are childhood friends and Jane acts very affectionate and loving towards Robert, but Tarzan does not trust him and dislikes the man, claiming that he reminds him of Sabor. The fact that Jane is so affectionate towards him and sees him as an integral part of her childhood is kind of sad. I don't really like that her trust and affection towards Robert is going to be violated. It doesn't feel right. The fact that he's introduced as someone she deeply cares about makes it weirder that he's going to be the villain for this episode. Robert is introduced to Porter, whom he is very happy to see. I like the way Robert is portrayed as he is charming and deceptive, synchronized with him weaponizing his relationship with Porter and Jane. I really don't like seeing him as a romantic rival to Tarzan. I mean, it worked with Queen Law, but that was done so much better and more creatively. He is simply trying to seduce Jane, which is just weird. Tarzan establishes boundaries as he deems this guy a threat to Jane's safety, which is reasonable. He's trying to protect her from somebody who seems to have bad intentions. Robert is invited to have tea with Jane, and Tarzan is very upset with the fact that she is so overly affectionate towards him. This romantic rivalry between Tarzan and Robert isn't working for me. It just feels so weird. It doesn't have any interesting elements attached to it other than the bits of lore from Jane's childhood. Robert is revealed to be a double agent who has stolen secret codes in London. He is a government spy working for British intelligence. He chases Jane down, and I like how Jane can finally use her abilities she's been taught in the jungle. It's actually kind of funny seeing her trying to survive the situation. Tarzan meets Nigel Taylor, who informs him that Robert is an espionage agent who is stealing secret codes and betraying the country of England. Jane is tied up on his plane and Tarzan tries to save her. We get an intense moment of Jane operating the plane that gets stuck on the seat, while Robert escapes with the code machine. The espionage spy comes back and decides to save Tarzan and Jane, who are stuck on the plane. He is arrested for his espionage crimes and taken away. For a final episode, this was very boring and confusing. I did not like the rivalry between Tarzan and Robert. It was very boring, drawn out, and weird. The reveal that he was an espionage spy was also really confusing, complicated, and did not fit the premise of the show properly. The shootout between Nigel and Robert was fun to watch, and Tarzan's ability to stall the plane was also impressive and a great moment. Robert as a villain was very boring and confusing. The whole episode just didn't make sense. Why is there a spy randomly here to take secret codes who is in a shootout with a captain trying to detain him? I'm gonna put him at C tier. And with that out of the way, those were all the villains that I covered. Now for my official ranking, in F tier we have Niels and Mercus, in D tier we have Naru and Shida, Mabaya, Fungi, and Waltham, in C tier we have Thaddeus's minions, Tubla, Robert Candler, Hista, and Zutho. In B tier we have Nicholas Rokoff, Muvirio, Thaddeus Hunt, and Queen Law. In A tier we have Udo and Kago, the Baboons, the Pirates, Ian McTeague, Mama Gunda, Jean Stacroix, Sam Philander, and Sabor. And in S tier we have Clayton, who in my opinion is the best villain in the franchise. That is my official ranking from worst to best.